The cowboy had just $3 left in his pocket. It was not enough to buy a decent meal or a place to sleep, but when he saw an Apache woman being treated like she had no value, he made a decision that shocked everyone watching. He spent every last cent to set her free. The crowd laughed, believing he had just thrown away his future. But they had no idea that one act of compassion would uncover a secret, bring powerful allies to his side, and change his life in ways no one could have imagined. The morning sun rose slowly over the wide Arizona frontier, painting the red cliffs with a warm golden glow. A lone cowboy guided his aging horse along a dusty trail that seemed to stretch without end. His clothes were faded from months beneath the open sky, and his boots carried the marks of countless miles. Every step forward reminded him how little he had left. He reached into his pocket and felt 3 small silver dollars resting in his hand. They were the last coins he owned. $3 could buy a simple meal, perhaps enough supplies to keep him going for another day, but nothing more. Finding honest work had become harder with every passing week. Ranches had cut back on hiring after a long dry season, and many towns were struggling just to care for their own families. His horse, Ranger, let out a tired breath as they approached a small trading settlement nestled beside a shallow river. Wagons lined the dusty street while merchants called out to passing travelers. Children laughed as they chased one another between market stalls. The smell of fresh bread drifted through the air, making the cowboy's empty stomach ache with hunger. He tied Ranger beneath the shade of a cottonwood tree and quietly walked through the crowded marketplace. Every stand displayed something he could no longer afford. Fresh fruit, warm stew, new boots, sturdy blankets. Each item reminded him how quickly a person's fortune could disappear. As he turned a corner, he noticed an unusually large crowd gathered near the center of the settlement. Curious voices filled the air, though no one sounded cheerful. People whispered among themselves while others simply watched in silence. The cowboy stepped closer until he could finally see what had drawn everyone together. A young Apache woman sat calmly beside an old wooden wagon. Dust covered her clothing, yet she carried herself with quiet dignity. Her long dark hair rested over one shoulder, and although exhaustion showed on her face, her eyes remained steady. She did not beg for sympathy or argue with anyone around her. Instead, she looked toward the distant mountains as if they still held memories no one else could see. An older trader stood nearby, speaking loudly to anyone willing to listen. $3, he announced. That is all it takes. Several people glanced at the woman before quickly looking away. Some shrugged and continued shopping. Others laughed, saying it was none of their concern. The cowboy felt a knot tighten in his chest. He looked down at the 3 silver dollars resting in his palm. Those coins were everything he had. Without them he would have no food, no supplies, and no clear path forward. He looked back at the woman. For the first time their eyes met. There was no fear in her expression. No anger. Only quiet strength and a silent hope that someone might choose compassion over comfort. The cowboy closed his hand around the $3. In that single moment, he knew exactly what he was going to do, even if it meant walking away with nothing except the clothes on his back. The trader counted the 3 silver dollars with a satisfied smile before slipping them into his pocket. Without another word, he stepped aside and motioned for the Apache woman to leave. The crowd watched in disbelief. "You gave away your last $3, one man asked, shaking his head. "You will not make it to the next town without money," another said with a laugh. The cowboy ignored every voice around him. He simply walked toward Ranger and loosened the reins. The Apache woman remained still for a moment, almost as if she could not believe she was truly free. Then she slowly followed him. For several miles, neither of them spoke. The only sounds were the steady footsteps of the horse and the gentle wind moving through the dry grass. The silence was not uncomfortable. It was the silence of 2 strangers trying to understand one another. As the afternoon sun grew hotter, the cowboy stopped beside a small patch of shade. He searched through his saddlebag and found only 1 piece of dry bread and a small pouch of water. It was everything he had left. Without hesitation, he broke the bread in half and offered 1 piece to the woman. She looked at him with surprise before quietly accepting it. "Thank you," she said softly. It was the first word she had spoken. "My name is Daniel," the cowboy replied with a warm smile. She placed a hand over her heart. I am Ayana." As they continued walking, Ayana noticed Daniel studying the dry land around them. She quietly stepped away from the trail and pointed toward a cluster of tall cottonwood trees. "There is fresh water there," she said. Daniel followed her and soon discovered a clear spring hidden beneath the trees. Ranger eagerly drank while Daniel filled his empty canteen. "You knew it was here?" he asked. Ayana smiled gently. "My father taught me to read the land. The trees always tell the truth." Before sunset, she gathered wild berries and edible plants growing between the rocks, enough for all three of them to eat. Daniel realized that although he had given away every dollar he owned, he was no longer facing the journey alone. With every mile they traveled together, trust quietly replaced uncertainty, and the road ahead no longer seemed quite so lonely. The next morning, Daniel and Ayana continued across the quiet frontier beneath a bright blue sky. Their journey became easier as they learned to depend on each other's strengths. Daniel knew how to repair worn trails, care for Ranger, and handle the challenges of long days on the road. Ayana understood the land in ways that amazed him. She could spot safe paths through rocky hills, find fresh water where others saw only dry ground, and recognize plants that could be used for food. Late that afternoon, they heard the sound of someone calling for help. Around the next bend, they found an elderly traveler struggling with a wagon that had become trapped in deep mud beside a narrow stream. Daniel quickly tied a strong rope from Ranger's saddle to the wagon while Ayana gathered smooth stones and placed them beneath the wheels for support. Working together, they encouraged the horse forward. After several determined pulls, the wagon finally rolled free. The grateful traveler smiled with relief. "I have little to offer," he said, "but you are welcome to share my supper and rest at my cabin tonight." Daniel gladly accepted. That evening, they enjoyed a simple meal beside a small fire while the traveler spoke about the changing frontier. Before sunrise, he thanked them once again and handed Daniel a small cloth bundle. "It is not payment," the old man said with a kind smile. "It is a gift for people who helped without expecting anything in return." Inside the bundle were fresh bread, dried fruit, and enough supplies to continue their journey for several days. As they rode away, Daniel looked toward Ayana. "It seems kindness has a way of finding its way back." Ayana smiled as the morning light spread across the distant hills. "My grandmother always said that a generous heart never travels alone." Daniel nodded quietly. For the first time in many months, he no longer worried about what tomorrow might bring. He had started this journey with only $3, but each passing day was proving that compassion could open doors no amount of money ever could. On the fourth evening of their journey, Ayana slowed her pace as they approached a narrow canyon hidden between towering red cliffs. She stopped beside a weathered stone marked with faded symbols and gently placed her hand upon it. "My family came here many years ago," she said quietly. "This place was once filled with laughter." Daniel looked around. The canyon was peaceful, yet it showed signs of being forgotten. A broken shelter leaned against a large cottonwood tree, and an old fire pit had nearly disappeared beneath drifting sand. Still, a clear spring flowed steadily from the rocks, untouched by time. Together they spent the rest of the afternoon clearing fallen branches and repairing the small campsite. Daniel gathered wood while Ayana cleaned the spring and uncovered a narrow stone path leading to the water. As the sun began to set, birds returned to the trees, and the quiet canyon slowly came alive again. Ranger grazed happily on the green grass surrounding the spring. Daniel smiled as he looked around. "It does not seem forgotten anymore." Ayana nodded, her eyes shining in the warm evening light. "Sometimes a place only needs someone willing to care." They sat beside the fire beneath a sky filled with stars. Neither spoke for several minutes. They simply watched the flames dance in the cool night air, both sensing that this peaceful valley was more than a resting place. It was the beginning of a new chapter neither of them had expected to find. As dawn broke over the canyon, Daniel stood beside the clear spring, watching the first rays of sunlight warm the valley. Just days earlier, he had believed his last $3 were gone forever. Now he understood they had given him something far more valuable than money. They had led him to friendship, purpose, and a place filled with hope. Ayana looked across the peaceful valley and smiled. "You did not just set me free," she said softly. "You set your own future free as well." Together, they stepped forward into the new day, unaware that an unexpected visitor was already making his way toward the hidden valley, carrying news that would change everything once again. Sometimes the smallest sacrifice creates the greatest change. Daniel believed his last $3 were all he had left, but in choosing kindness over comfort, he discovered that compassion has a way of returning in unexpected ways. One simple decision brought hope where there had been despair and opened the door to a future neither he nor Ayanna could have imagined. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more original Western frontier stories filled with courage, friendship, and unforgettable journeys. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new adventure. We would also love to hear from you. What would you have done if those $3 were all you had? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to sharing another unforgettable story with you soon.